This is Keys to the Truth, and today we will talk about what stars do. One of their functions, one of their many functions, and also we're going to talk about crystal magic and crystal programming. All right, so let's get started.
One piece of equipment. And it's true. TSMC cannot make its chips without a $150 million machine from a Dutch company called ASML. ASML's high-end equipment prints the tiny features that form the basis of TSMC's microchips. Microchips are made by building up billions of tiny transistors. An ASML machine patterns the finest lines on the microchips using a method called lithography.
It's actually photolithography, but we will get to that in a minute. So bear with me here. You might think that these subjects are not interrelated, but they are. Remember, finding the truth is it's a matter of connecting the dots, basically, which may seem distant or separate or not connected, but that's where our booty or our intellect comes in, and the grace of God, of course, and humility. Otherwise, you close off yourself to understanding. But let's continue.
The projection system shrinks and focuses the pattern onto a silicon wafer. After the pattern is printed, it moves the...
So they're using silicone, all right? So keep your eye on the ball. This is like a little magic trick. It is real magic, but they're disguising it as technology. Science and technology are completely bogus and fake, all right? So let's continue. What's real is the magic, but their tricks are fooling you into thinking it's a technology where it's not. There's techniques to it. You could call that a technology, but it's not a science. It's not deterministic. It's not Newtonian or Einsteinian or quantum physics BS. All right, let's continue.
Wafer slightly and makes another copy on the layer. They are built up layer by layer, like layering a cake, except much more complicated because this involves up to 100 layers with nanometer precision. The more transistors can be added to a chip, the more powerful the chip becomes. ASML is the only company in the world that makes the machine needed to print advanced microchips. It manufactures...
Only company in the world. Gee, golly, I guess why that is.
...the equipment at its factories in Veldhoven, Netherlands. The company was founded in 1984 as a joint venture between the electronics giant Philips and the Dutch chip machine manufacturer ASM International. ASML is now an independent company. It has a monopoly on EUV lithography, extreme ultraviolet light.
Light, so they're using light, all right? Keep your eye on the ball, guys, please. Remember what I've told you light is. Light is not a particle. Light is not really a wave, okay? Light does not depend on the ether. The ether does not exist. And I know some of you might think that's heresy, but we're here trying to find the truth. We're trying to be honest seekers looking for the truth, wherever it may lead us, all right? So light is a conversation between crystals. It's a property of crystals. It does not travel. It's telepathic, and I've proven that to you. Be sure to check out my playlists on light, what light really is and how it travels. It's a telepathic command or instruction between crystals. But let's continue.
An extremely short wavelength of light that can create even tinier circuitry than is possible with conventional lithography, which relies on deep UV.
So you're thinking, hey, Keys to the Truth, how come you're saying it's not a wave and then you can measure the wavelength? What you're measuring is an interval, okay, of the crystal light emission, or you can call it illumination. You're measuring an interval, and you can call it a wave all you want, but it's not really a wave. Let's continue.
EUV light doesn't occur naturally on Earth, only in outer space.
All right, so this is mockery, and this is fakery and hoax, but they're telling you the truth. It's hidden within the mockery. They're telling you EUV light doesn't occur naturally on Earth. That's questionable. Right, so that may be an outright lie, but outer space. So we know there's no outer space, but they're giving you some hints there because it is being produced by the sun and the moon and the stars. All right, so let's take a look at that here, and then we'll come back to the information. Sun UV wavelength, and so we'll come back to this again. The sun is producing UV. and we can measure it in a wavelength, but remember that's what you're measuring is a frequency. All right, so and then if you look for the moon, they admit that the moon is also emitting some UV light, ultraviolet spectral radiant energy reflected from the moon. Stars are emitting UV light as well. And here's the site for the Hubble. You may say, oh, Keith Ruth, there's no Hubble telescope. They can call it Hubble if they want. They can give you these fake CGI things. But keep your eye on the ball. Do not be deceived by reverse psychology. Okay? If the stars are emitting UV wavelengths or UV light commands or information telepathically, then that's what we need to find out. You need to be able to sort the lies, sort the truth within the lies. Right? Ultraviolet and optical spectroscopy. You can do a spectroscopical analysis of any light source, right? Ultraviolet astronomy. So it's a thing, right? They might be deluded into thinking outer space, blah, blah, but keep your eye on the ball, guys, all right? Remember, do not be deceived so easily. So let's get back to that video.
So ASML must generate it somehow. To generate the light, a CO2 laser fires 2 laser pulses at a drop of tin.
Laser, okay? You know what lasers are? They're crystal magic. They need a crystal to work. And here, they'll say it in a minute.
Vaporizing it. The tin vapor becomes plasma.
Plasma. Golly. Where's the biggest source of plasma? Like on top of our heads. The sun and the moon. They're both plasma. And so are the stars. So let's continue.
Which emits EUV light. This happens at a rate of 50,000 times a second. The machines are assembled in clean rooms containing zero dust. These rooms are 10,000 times cleaner than outside air. Even the smallest speck of dust that ends up on a wafer can ruin it. The company's decision to switch to EUV light in the 90s gave it an astounding advantage. It cost billions of dollars to make.
Geez, I wonder where they got the idea, all right? So again, these guys are copycats. They're good copycats, even though this technology is pretty much, it's nothing too sophisticated. It's sophisticated for the average Joe in the street. It's sophisticated for me, but it's nothing compared to the capabilities that crystals have or this magical realm has. This is like primitive.
Make the radical switch in light sources, but the effort has paid off big time. ASML is now valued at around $193 billion.
Yeah, all their foreign companies to do all their stuff, right? And keep it in the club.
EUV equipment is sold to the largest chip makers in the world, TSMC, Samsung, and Intel. Every one of its machines has over 100,000 parts.
Yeah, they're all part of the club, and we're not part of it. It's all about that, right? The control and the hoodwinkery.
They're shipped in 40 freight containers, 20 trucks, and 3 Boeing 747s.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. You can look at those videos on your own time. I'm wanting to make my videos a little more to the point. So let's look at another one on this manufacturer. They make lithography systems, photolithography. All chip makers use them. So pretty much everything that you use in this modern age is based on this crystal magic, disguised this technology. And it's real basic crystal magic. It's like Crystal Magic 101. There's much more advanced crystal magic.
Commercial reality. As I write these words, extreme ultraviolet lithography has become a commercial reality. As I write these words, multi-million-dollar machines from ASML use EUV light to create impossibly small patterns in wafers. This technological magic requires a powerful heart inside of it, and indeed, there is an amazing system driving ASML's $150 million lithography machine, the EUV light source. In this video, we're going to look at the lasers firing pulses.
The light source. So you see, it's all about the light. The light is the communication between crystals. But not just that, there's also a hierarchy. So it can become a command, an instruction. And who's the light of this world? Christ, I'm sorry if you're an atheist, and I'm talking about spirituality here, but I mean that's the bottom line. I mean that's the cat's pajamas right there. You know, whenever we learn something about this realm or this universe, it's learning about God and the Creator, because ultimately that's what His design, he, the intention behind His design. So a lot of these things are to teach us things about Him, and so we can learn and get closer to Him.
Add 10 droplets to create the powerful 13.5 nanometer wavelength light for our latest, greatest microprocessors. But first, I want to talk about the Asianometry Patreon. If you like what this channel does, to consider a laser company called Gigaphoton, a subsidiary of Komatsu, that is also attempting to reliably generate EUV light with their own unique approach. I think what they are doing is pretty cool too. We can cover them in a future video of chips. They hash out the technical aspects of the candidates, coordinate the necessary R&D, and then cooperate, despite usually being rivals. For a long time, the industry was etching with light in the 193 nanometer wavelength. This generation was getting long in the tooth, but engineers kept finding ways to extend its usefulness in the industry. For instance, they realized that shooting the light through ultra-pure water through to the wafer allowed them to focus more sharply and etch yet smaller features. This technique is called immersion lithography. Then they started using techniques like double patterning. This is where you use additional exposures to improve the feature density. In other words, kind of like doing a double pass.
Wow, immersion lithography, that's pretty interesting that they were using water at one point, because remember the atmosphere is full of water, right? So the humidity percentage is the water content. Plus we have rivers, we have ponds, we have lakes, we have the ocean. So it's all part of the design of how that UV light or different kinds of light are interacting with the water and the materials. Now, do not forget they're using silicone for this. And what's most of the earth made out of? Sand, which is what? Silicone.
Through the machine. These helped the industry push ahead, but at the end of the day, they needed to move on from 193 nanometer, and EUV light would be the 13.5 nanometer, $150 million raft to take them there. Scientists.
So you could even think of the Earth as a giant silicone wafer. All right.
And engineers identified two simple but big requirements for the next generation EUV light source. We have advanced far beyond simple light bulbs. The first big requirement is that the source needed to have a high conversion efficiency. That means it has to be able to generate enough EUV light in the correct wavelength, 13.5 nanometers. Furthermore, the light needs to be emitted in the right direction, backwards towards the light collector optics. Then the mirror, roughly shaped like a headlamp, can collect this light and send it towards the rest of the optic system. And of course, it needs to generate.
And there you have it, right there. That's our answer. And you know, I'll keep on, but look at this. You know, these are actual shots of actual stars taken. And how do I know that? When I first started this journey, my brother challenged me, and rightfully so. He said, like, what if these are CGI too? What if they're, you know, faking this side of things as well? So I bought a P900 camera, and I have a footage just like this one of Sirius. I have several shots, and I'll upload that some other time. But I verified that this is true, that stars actually look like this with my own eyes. Okay, so that's really important, that we do actual legwork, and we're not just, you know, taking their word, anybody's word for anything. Here, I'm going to subscribe to this guy's channel. Thumb up. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you're not unsubscribed, because these suckers are pulling their antics all the time. Thumbs up and share the video. If you're on Discord servers, friends, family, forward them the links. Download the videos. Copy them. Mirror them. I mean, this is for the good of humanity, and it's a service to God. I mean, ultimately, God doesn't need our service, right? He allows us to give him service because there's a mirror effect, and that benefits us as well. So it's kind of like a matching fund system. You do a good deed for your fellow man or for God, and then God kind of, you know, helps you out in the same way. And, you know, life's also like an ocean that's going to have its waves and its wakes. So don't think it's all going to be, you know, all rosy. If you're being good, I'm being good, and then bad things are happening to me. You tough it out. Okay, tough it out and keep at it. So you see all these light sources, that's what's happening. Let's keep let's go back to the analytics. All right, here we go.
This light relatively efficiently. You don't want to put an obscene amount of energy into this light source. The second
Obscene amount of energy. Think of the sun.
big requirement has to do with the debris. Firing lasers at things creates a lot of debris. That stuff will find its way to the critical optic system and dampen their performance. To meet cost of ownership requirements, a way has to be found to mitigate this debris. These two major issues are surprisingly simple to explain, but in 1986, Japanese researcher Hiro Kinoshita began experimenting with new wavelengths of light, essentially X-rays, to etch transistors onto silicon. His work allowed him to print 500 nanometer
Silicone, again with the silicone, okay? It's a kind of crystal. What are mountains made of? What is the earth made of? Sand, dirt, rocks, which are basically silicone. I'll do another video on that, but let's continue.
half-pitch patterns. Half-pitch meaning half the minimum distance spacing between lines. Bell Labs soon followed with a 50 nanometer half-pitch print in 1990. These early experiments were done with synchrotron radiation. A synchrotron is a class of donut-shaped particle accelerator descended from the industrialist vision having one
this
synchrotron
is such a
multiple
hoax. Sorry, I apologize. Like the LHC, forgive me, but I don't buy any of that. CERN and all that is just a bunch of hoaxes.
Space, TSMC would do it, but because the synchrotron emitted UV light over too broad a field of view, not enough of it would go into the collector mirror, thus failing the first big requirement. At the same time, the goalpost moved farther backwards. EUV had originally been scheduled for the 100 nanometer node, which meant the light source and print resolution did not have to be all that powerful. But then it got penciled in for the 70 nanometer node, and then the 50 nanometer node. Later on, it would fall even further as delays piled up. This had cascading effects throughout the entire design. The EUV optic system, painstakingly.
Look at this, plasma. What's the sun? Plasma. What's the moon? Plasma. The sun is salt plasma, that's why it's jello. Make sure you watch my video on what oxygen really is. Oxygen comes from the sun, and I've already proved it to you. I've given you over 20 proofs. Nitrogen comes from the moon. The moon is white nitrogen plasma. Super cool. And I still have to do that video. I'm sorry, it's just time consuming. But I'm doing this one right now, and so the stars quite possibly are also plasma sources. You might say, hey, they're angels, or they're ascended masters, or rishis, or illuminated beings. Yeah, that doesn't. It's not mutually exclusive. They could be both. All right. So let's keep at it.
Crafted by German optics maker
Carl Zeiss, and so that's the club ASML and Zeiss. Okay, Zeiss does the crystals. Keep your eye on the ball here. It's all about crystal magic and light.
Needed to change. To increase the print resolution, Zeiss had to add more mirrors into the projection and illumination optic systems. Each mirror, even when perfectly made, is only capable.
So they have this pretend between like, oh, it's France is a country, and Amsterdam's another. I'm sorry, France. Holland is a different country, and Germany is a different country. They're all part. If they're under the UN flag, they're in the same club. Okay, they just have these little pens, and they give you a nationality, and they give you, some fake sense of being, and we cling to it, and then we have all these passports, and it's all about control, keeping everybody in a different pen. It's all BS. It's all BS. We're all human beings. We're all part of the same race. Everything else is just part of the control system. And I'm sorry if you don't want to hear that, but this is truth here. This is dedicated to seeking the truth. This is not an entertainment channel.
Of reflecting at most around 70% of the EUV light that hits it. The rest gets absorbed. These two factors together meant that for EUV lithography to work on the shop floor, ASML needed a stronger, singular, is that a word, more brilliant point of plasma light, capable of at least 250 watts to be competitive with the current 193 nanometer laser technology. Something to note, it's not just good enough for the technology to work. Anyone can slap together a bunch of lab equipment and shove it in front of the users. It also has to be appreciably better than what is already on the market, or else there's no point for it to be. Customer commercial requirement. Thus, another breakthrough in EUV light generation was required before industry leaders could start to take it seriously. Researchers for a long time had been experimenting with something called laser-produced plasma.
Again, lasers and plasma, okay.
Or LPP. This is where you point a laser at a gold plate or wire target so to create plasma. The plasma then presumably emits UV light in the proper wavelength required. This might work, but the prevailing issue everyone thought would be the deal breaker was debris. Bits and pieces of the target would fly off and contaminate the optic system, degrading. Targets seem to be rare xenon gas, in either gaseous or ice form, and YAG lasers. YAG stands for yttrium, aluminum, garnet lasers. They are powered by a crystal.
They are powered by what? Let's hear that again.
Garnet lasers. They are powered by a crystal. Kind of reminds me of those things they use for light.
Yeah, because it's true. Okay, he's making a joke, thinking that, oh, science fiction, but that's why they push the science fiction. It's kind of mind control, so that predictive programming. So you think you see it as sci-fi, and then you cannot relate to it in real life, and then so they block off that part of your brain or your mind, and then you can no longer ever think of it as reality. So if I tell you, hey, it's crystal magic, then you're gonna immediately block off, and your mind just shuts down, and it says, oh, that's science fiction. That's science fiction. It can't be real. So it's a technique of mind control. You see, even this guy that knows so much doing this video can't see that it's true, that it's crystal magic. Right there, that's the crystal that's powering the laser lightsaber, and that's what's powering this machine too that we're using to program all these chips and transistors that go into your smartphone, into your TV, in your microwave, etc., etc., etc. It's crystal magic that our technology runs on, our world runs on it. The whole, even the natural world, creation by God, He's the one that created crystals. That's why that phoneme is found in Christus, and it's also in Krishna, because they're the creators of the crystals. Okay, let's keep going.
Early experiments had researchers firing 1 kilowatt YAG lasers at a jet of xenon at a rate of 10,000 cycles per second. Scientists at Sandia Laboratory were eventually able to suppress xenon ice particles from getting to the optics using a gas jet, but the xenon ice plasma also emitted high-energy ions that degraded the optics anyway. Nobody knew how to fix that. That last paragraph sounds like a line of dialogue from a Star Trek movie. The second most plausible option was tin. Tin plasma certainly emits a lot of UV light in the required wavelength, but the conversion efficiency you got from firing lasers at a tin plate was terrible. More on that later. Furthermore, using tin as an EUV light source notoriously generates a lot of tin debris. As I mentioned before, a tin layer just 1.2 nanometers thick will cause a 20% decline firing lasers at tin droplets rather than a tin plate with good results. Then, in 2002, all the leading minds got together in Dallas to talk about it. They debated the future of the xenon laser option. The tin option would create a debris nightmare up ahead in the development roadmap, but maybe with enough engineering, this could be overcome. There would be no fundamental physics issue ahead. Thus, the industry made a massive turn and embarked on a journey towards tin plasma. The original target material had been a tin plate. However, the conversion efficiency with the plate was rather low. The reason for this is because of a low level.
Blah, blah, blah. All right, so let's look closer at how it actually happens. Right, and this here is from the horse's mouth. One of the top guys at Zeiss crystals.
So let's talk about lithography. Lithography is an old technique.
Photolithography. Okay, and so here we have, you can look it up. It's an actual thing. UV lithography. Well, I'm gonna get ahead of that. It's an actual thing.
Basically, you take a template and then you copy this template many times. That's what lithography is. Now, of course, today lithography looks slightly different, and what I prepared here is a flow through the entire chip making. So we start with silicon, which is made out of sand. The silicon is molten.
Wow, look at that. What am I telling you? Silicon and sand, there's a direct relationship there. It's not called Silicon Valley for nothing. They're telling you it's all about crystal magic.
And you have you put something in to let it crystallize. This is an
crystallize. Again, you can find the truth if you look hard enough.
ingot. The ingot is a one crystal silicon. It will be cut into slices. This is a wafer.
Again,
the wafer will be polished. Silicon, it will be cut into slices. This is a wafer.
Crystal. Okay, they make it a crystal. They let it crystallize, actually. And then they start playing around with it.
The wafer will be polished. And once the wafer is finished, in order to bring the structure on the wafer, we start with a photoresist, a light-sensitive material.
So in essence, this is what I'm telling you. This
and then
is
in the
what
machine,
the stars
we copy
are
our
doing.
mask through optics onto that wafer. And now when you zoom in, you can machine, we copy our...
This is exactly what the sun and the stars are doing in a way. So I'm going to play that at like super slow speed so you can appreciate it. You could think of the Earth as a crystal wafer, mostly silicone. And one of the functions, well, the sun gives us light, gives us heat. The moon gives us oxygen. The moon gives us nitrogen, gives us food. because nitrogen is ultimately protein, and it also gives us fertilization for plants, etc. Nitrogen also gives us power in our breathing, and you can check that just for nitrous oxide for cars, etc. So these higher entities that are servants of God, created by God, ultimately are serving us. You see how it works? We're the little tiny beings, and these higher beings in higher dimensions are working for us. Everything that they're doing is not even, for themselves, it's for us. You see the lack of selfishness, the selflessness, and that's what elevates them and makes them higher. So this is also what the stars might be doing. And I feel it in my God. I'm showing you the proof. There's the UV interacting with the crystals and the silicone and earth, rocks, granite, marble, sandstone. They all have oxygen and silicone. Look at that. Isn't that just mind blowing, guys? Let me know in the comments. Please, share your thoughts with me. If you agree, if you don't agree, if you have some experiences. Well, look at that. He wrote Sanskrit here. What is that? Meva, it says. That's the star. It's emitting its light. Another star emitting its light. All kinds of different light. There may be, things there that we don't even suspect, right? That we don't even suspect. And so it's hard to find these, but if you look for star cymatics, you can find them easier. So these are pretty cool. If you get a P900 or a P1000, I'm not crazy about the P1000 because I think they've already kind of fiddled around with it. They put some chips inside it to fool you. The P900 is less digital, more analog, and I like that. This looks like Venus. It's not as shiny as the other ones, so that's pretty odd. My favorite is the Dog Star, Sirius. It's always there for me, for whatever reason, following me around. So let's continue.
You can see the light does some chemistry in that photoresist, and it basically makes the photoresist soluble with the developer, and then you have areas without photoresist and areas that are covering the material, so you can transport that into the material. Photoresist.
So the light starts giving instructions to the
light sensitive material, and then in the machine we copy our mask through optics onto that wafer, and now when you zoom in you can see the light.
It starts creating patterns. Mountains, anybody? Ridges, anybody? Valleys, anybody?
Does some chemistry in that photoresist,
and this is very important because there's a lot of people out there that have noticed that, hey, some of these mountain ranges or some of these valleys look like transistors or look like microchip arrangements. So they think, oh, the Earth is one giant microchip or it's a computer. You might kind of think about it that way, but it's much more than that. Okay, remember, we're still in primitive stages of trying to recover our lost technology and or magic, and there's a lot of that we need to learn. So you make the analogy that you're familiar with, right? So in the past it was horses, and then it was cars that run on gas. Now it's electric cars. Now it's computers. Now we have simulation theory and this and that and the other. But it's never going to be quite as complex or complicated as real life. So there are approximations, there are models, there are ways of thinking at the world. So let's continue.
In that photoresist, and it basically makes the photoresist soluble with the developer, and then you have areas without photoresist and areas that are covering the material, so you can transport that into the material. Then you can do things like, this is just, of course, schematic. This is a metal layer, we fill it with copper, we have barrier layers, we have processes.
The Earth is layered too, and there's crystals growing on all the time, and you can go on these channels that dig up crystals and look at that.
That's polish, called CMP, and this process
is continued, and you build many layers on top of each other. And then at the end, you have a full wafer printed with all identical chips, and then the wafer is cut in pieces. The single chips will be packaged, and this package then will be part of your device.
So this would also lend credence to what astrology is. Astronomy, remember, is complete hoax, baloney. It's not true. But astrology, there might be a lot to it. If these stars are actually, imprinting, and wherever you're located at a different time, there's going to be a different pattern, and it's gonna have a different imprint on your body, on your soul, on your your blood, your psyche, everything. So and also different geographies are going to have different imprints because why the star geometries are different. So I mean, if you I know the Bible talks bad about astrologers, but mainly what God's saying there is that, like, He's got the upper hand always, and that's completely correct. Of course, I mean, God doesn't need my approval. What I'm saying is I completely agree with the scriptures in that sense that ultimately it's up to God. God gives the commands, and He can always. I've seen Him bend the rules. I've seen Him in my personal life, and so He's got the final say in whatever, right? So these are things He kind of mechanizes or sets in motion and like to run automatically. But He's got, like, He can do whatever He wants. But and he's just not. I mean, are you going to persuade Him to do that or not? That's going to depend a lot on your devotion, your dedication, and a lot of stuff. And that's what the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, all these scriptures are about. They're showing us the way that we can, ultimately sort of persuade God to lend the hand, because life stuff.
Device, be it a camera, be it smartphones, be it computers, for networks, mobile devices, and so on. Today, the feature sizes here, again, you see kind of like a three-dimensional view into how the architecture of a chip. Today, the feature sizes, the line widths.
So we're sort of proving that astrology is true, right? So I'm going to start, talking about, just doing astrology and basing your whole life upon that. No, because the interpretations might be incorrect. If you don't have God at the center, you're always going to be off.
Are about 15 nanometers. The overlay, which I haven't explained yet, overlay means we have many layers, and we need to make sure that the next layer will be aligned to the lower layer, is in the order of 4 nanometers over the entire.
Well, he's gone through the basics. So what do we have left here? Let's see. Oh, well, what's and then we have the bad side. Do cell phones give off UV light? You betcha. And the newer the cell phone, the more UV light. That's why they have these glasses to help you, with UV light, like UV light glasses, okay? And to protect you from your screen. OLED, okay? Ultraviolet sensitive OLED screens for your computer, for your laptop, for your phone. And what are these things doing to us? Okay? So what did we find out? Light is programming crystals. Light commands crystals and programs crystals. All right? So when you're looking at a computer screen, when you're looking at your cell phone, it's having an imprint on you. I just showed you how they do that, how they program these transistors. So, I mean, try to avoid screen time as much as freaking possible. Honestly, I'm guilty of it. I'm like glued to the screen, like 20 hours a day. But even if it's 1 minute less or an hour less, it's good. Now, hear me out. You are also a light source, because all LEDs or diodes or even your RIs are two ways. They're all two ways. And I'm not going to show you the proof of that. Go on and research it on your own time. So you have the command. You can have the command of these crystals too. And you can fight back, but just being aware of this, like what I'm telling you right now, just being aware of it gives you a lot of power, because then you can even watch whatever you're watching and you can be like, I'm in control, and you, crystal, you're not going to program me. I'm going to program you. because I'm part of the universal consciousness that is God, and I can, I have a mind of my own, I have a volition of my own, right? So that's really important, guys, that you realize that, all right? And so knowing is half the battle. And this again proves what stars are and what they're doing and what they're trying to do to us with all these computer screens and smart screens. They're trying to program you a certain way, but you can fight back, right? And you can free yourself. You can free your mind from these tools of the enemy by knowing what's really going on, right? And knowing that you're part of the light, the real light, not the fake light, the real light of God, the Creator, the ultimate supreme being of the universe. So I humbly pray for His forgiveness, for His protection. I pray for you and your families so that you may be protected, you may be in God's light, and God's grace may shine upon you, fill you with abundance, happiness, and supreme bliss. God bless.